What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell. And this episode, we're going to answer an interesting question proposed by one of our commenters. But before we do, give us a subscribe, give us a like. We'd appreciate it. But Jimmy, let them know what Nick Solano asked in our comments.
Yeah, and shout out to Nick Solano for representing Ravens South, is what he likes to call it, down in Florida, one of our patrons. So a big shout out. But he, in the comment section, he brought up a really interesting question that we thought was worthy of a video.
Yes.
He said, what additions will make the biggest impact on the offense? The new wide receivers, the new offensive line, and improved offensive line, or the new position coaches? So that would be Keith Williams and T. Martin. I think it's a really intriguing question. You know, at its surface, for me, it's it's easy to answer, but if you take a step back, it's a little more intricate. So, Glenn, I'll let you kind of give your first thoughts on it, because me at first thought, and I'll flesh it out a little bit further, it starts and ends with the O-line. I mean, to me, it's just that simple. But what are your thoughts about this question? Where do you think the biggest impact will be had based on these three options?
Yeah, and I can understand why I think this is a really good question, because I think a lot of fans were hopeful that we would add to the room, the wide receiver room, add some talent there, where most people think if we're not at the very bottom, we're certainly near the bottom as far as talent in the wide receiver room. So I can understand why that would be an option. They certainly added a bunch of guys there with Sammy Watkins coming in free agency, Rashad Bateman and Tylan Wallace, being added in the draft. So no doubt that they added to the room. And then, of course, the new position coaches that he's referring to are T. Martin, who's our new wide receiver coach. And which one's which? Keith Williams and T. Martin are the new coaches. But do you know which one is the... John
talked about it the other day, and I think he got me even more confused. So, DK, settle this score for us. But we know that they are...
Yeah, can you look that up for us, DK, and find out which is... But they're both working with the receivers. We understand that.
Right. We're attacking the passing game from a tactical standpoint and a strategy standpoint.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, that's the way that I see it in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that they're brought in to do more than just work on route running here and there. They're here to work on expanding the entire passing attack in this offense, working hand in hand with Greg Roman as well as the players on getting this thing better. So to me, I
see T. Martin. I could be wrong, but I see T. Martin is the guy that's out in Omaha. That was
Keith Williams.
Oh, Keith Williams. Excuse me.
T. Martin was the former USC offensive coordinator.
So I see him as like the strategy guy.
Okay,
and so Keith Williams as the... Do you see what I'm saying?
T. Martin is the wide receivers coach.
Right.
And Keith Williams is, I guess he's the passing game coordinator now. But either way, I know that Keith is going to be working more than just the receivers. He's going to be working with the backs coming out of the backfield and how to run those routes. He's going to be working with the tight ends on how to run their routes from, a multitude of different positions, because they'll line them guys up, out wide in the slot on the end of the line of scrimmage, as well as in the back, like a traditional fullback position. We've seen them used there as well. So
can I mention something really funny though, Glenn?
Yeah.
So it's really funny to me that even as an assistant or a coordinator, so when he was Greg Roman, before he was the coordinator, he was the run game coordinator and the assistant head coach. Wasn't that what it is?
I think so. Yeah.
So they were comfortable giving him the assistant head coach title, but they had, even at that point, didn't want him to have anything to do with the passing game. They said, you can be the run game coordinator. Right. Obviously, it's really good. No, Greg, passing game, not for you, my friend.
Well, they had Marty Morningweg then. And remember, Marty has his own podcast now. His QB School. It's something with Q.
Look it. There you go.
Look it. But yeah, so
he sounds like he belongs on Sandlot. He sounds like grew up.
I miss his pressers, man. They were a blast. Greg Roman has mastered the art of coach speak. Says absolutely nothing in any of his pressers. Whereas you get some good nuggets out of a Marty Morningweg presser. But anyway,
look it again one more time.
Look it here. I love the Marty Morningweg and the way he talks. But yeah, so Keith Williams is the passing game coordinator. Thanks, DK, and T. Martin is the new receiver coach, and then of course with the offensive line, the additions. you got to start with Kevin Zeitler coming over,
Mm-hmm.
expected to play right guard. Alejandro Villanueva coming over and expected to make the switch from left to right tackle. And then the guys that they added in the draft, of course, highlighted by Ben Cleveland, the guard out of Georgia. So to me, I'm going to say it's going to be the coaches that they added to the room. I think that the amount of detail that they're going to be adding to these to the routes that they're going to be running, the complexity I think that they're going to bring to the passing scheme, I think is a huge deal, because the other teams, when they got to a certain point, they just said, look, we're going to put so many guys in the box that you can't block us all. You just can't block us all. So unless you're going to ask a guy to make multiple guys miss in a small area, then we're going to stuff this run game, and we're going to leave guys on islands on the outside. And then Ravens just could not make them pay. Now, the question is that personnel? Is that scheme? I think we're going to have that answer this year. And other people have, they some tend to blame the scheme, some tend to blame the talent in the room and say, well, that's wise because they just couldn't separate, whatever the case may be. But they've added to the talent. So I think that now the coaches will groom this talent and groom the talent we already had, more importantly, because I think Hollywood's a heck of a player. I think Duvernay's got some real talent and ability. I think James Prochet is just scratching the surface. So I'm really excited about what the new coaches are going to bring, in personnel development, as well as expanding this offense in general, because the Ravens just have not done a good job at drafting or developing talent. Now, I think these coaches were fully involved in the draft process as well. I'm sure that they watched every one of their wide receiver talents. I'm sure they watched all their tight end targets in the draft. And I'm sure they even peeked at some of maybe the late round targets they may have been looking at running back and seeing what they can do in the passing game. So I think that they're going to be heavily involved in more than just developing the young talent that we have in Baltimore. And I think that should get fans excited, because if they can expand this passing offense to where if they dare you to pass it, and now we can actually make them pay on it, man, I just don't know what the ceiling would be on this offense.
Yeah, that's a great point. Man, so like I said, I agree with all your points, but like I said, for me at the beginning and the end is the offensive line. And I wanted to come off that point because I think that the NFL is the one league where in the NBA, you can be the worst coaching staff ever, but if you got the best five at the end of the day, like, they're going to win ball games.
Mm-hmm.
And people could argue that, look, you throw Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and that Bulls team in any offense. You could have a Chipmunk, Alvin the Chipmunk coaching them. They're getting you a few rings, right? Like talent alone. And so LeBron has pretty much been the coach for a lot of his teams in one way or another, where football is so dependent because of the strategy, the real chess match that does still exist between an entire coaching staff against another, right? That's why Bill has done so much at times with his defense, where, a guy like Kyle Van Noy probably wouldn't be this, have such a long tenure in the NFL if it weren't for a guy like Bill Belichick, who's able to, take him and get the most out of him. So examples like that, I think, are really important. But for me, at the end of the day, even when I look at all those things, I look at the improved wide receiver core, it still comes down to the slobber knockers up front. You just can't get around it, right? Because not only are they going to improve from a passing standpoint, we don't know what the ceiling is on this run game. Think about our offensive line took a serious step back last year. We lost an All-Pro. We lost a Hall of Famer. There's no way around it. We took a step back as an offensive line last year. That was apparent in the passing game. But think about the fact that we're getting a former Pro Bowler at right guard, potentially one of the biggest left guards, coming out of college. If he can make that switch, we're getting our All-Pro back. We're getting a former Pro Bowler at right tackle. That is a scary proposition for defenses to go up against. And so for me, the biggest impact, because it will be in every single play, whether it's pass or run, will be the offensive line. I just don't think there's any way around it, because if Lamar is stepping back and passing, he's not comfortable, it's over. You can have the best scheme ever. You can have the best strategy, the best plays written up. Forget about it, right? And then at the same time, the heartbeat of this team, just like back in the day where it used to be defense, the heartbeat of this team is the reliance on the running game, the consistency of the running game. The defense, the clock control, the defense can sit out, the time of possession, and then the field position and things like that. I think it's just too important. So for me, I got to go with the offensive line, and I think that this could be one heck of an offensive line coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. Look, I think all three of these, the additions they made to all three of these areas that we're talking about, it could all be huge. I mean,
yeah,
I think
certainly that's our hope, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Bateman turns into the number one that the Ravens have long been searching for, that's a huge boost. If Sammy Watkins can stay healthy and bring what he can, when he's healthy, which we all know is fantastic, boom, that's another huge boost to the room. If Tylan Wallace can become that outside threat that he was in college and add that big play ability that he had, that's a huge boom. But I agree with you also. I mean, Alejandro, if he can make that switch, can continue to be that model of consistency, just switch it and bring it to the right side, big time. And then, Zeitler, the fact that we knew there was going to be a drop off at right tackle, right guard, but I don't think we knew it would be quite as steep as it was. Well, I think they, while he's still no Marshall Yanda, the drop off is a lot less severe from Yanda to Zeitler than it was from Yanda to Powers, who ended up, finishing the season at right guard. The big question to me is still, we don't know if it's Ben Cleveland at left guard. We don't know if it's Bredesen, Tyree Phillips, Ben Powers. It could be any one of those guys, but either way.
And honestly, we know who's at center, right? Like,
we don't know who's at center. And that's
don't know.
Yeah. And if it is Bozeman, then we don't know if that left guard will really be better than Bozeman just yet at left guard. But we know if he switches to center, will we get an upgrade there over Macari or over Colon Castillo, depending on, who would have been the starter had he not made the switch. But
now here's the real question, Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think – I want to know where Daniel's going. And before you put it up in the bottom of the screen here, Daniel, I want you to guess. What do you think Daniel's answer is? Because he could settle this debate.
I think he's going to agree with you and talk about the slobber knockers. And really, I mean, you made a good case, Jimmy. I'm not going to be upset if he does, but just to me, the added boost that I think they'll bring to the room, the whole team in general.
You're right.
Don't you think there was a lot of people on the team that were starting to second guess what we had going on offensively and going, man, I don't know if Greg Roman's the guy that can really evolve this passing offense. Now you bring those two guys in, a guy like Keith Williams, who's so well respected among the ranks of Pro Bowlers and all pros across the league. Even teams even players on other teams, the prospective free agents coming up, are going to look at the Ravens in a totally different light and say, man, they got Keith Williams. I used to have to go to Omaha to go work with this dude and pay him out of my own pocket. Now you're telling me he's my position coach? I mean, I just think that the impact could be huge, more than just this season, but just this season alone, I think it could be gigantic. But DK, if you're ready, let us know.
What you got? Let's see. Drum roll. Hey,
he sided with the Jimbo. Okay,
but I understand. Look, I'll be the first to say I totally understand your point as well. Well, I'll take the victory. I'll take it humbly. Okay. In that, just saying that is completely arrogant. It's not even humble in of itself. But I think that it's a close second because they're tone setters. It's more than just a strategy, but it is a culture. It is a psychological difference that these players will have going into the game, knowing that they've been armed and prepared, right? Like it's the same thing as I've got this on my mind a lot because I've got a race coming up, and going into a race blind is way different than going through that course a few times. By the time you go through it a few times, it's like, all right, I know what's coming, right? So I feel like these guys going in are going to go in with such a different mindset as a wide receiver core, with a little bit of swagger, a lot more confidence, knowing that they got the best in the business prepping them. So it does more than just the strategy, but in here, it's going to make a huge difference.
Does anything matter or change the game more than confidence in an athlete?
Right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Having that confidence, I feel like changes everything. But that confidence can also be said about the offensive line.
Well, and the only thing that changes more than confidence is a squirrel diet. That's much more impactful.
Squirrel diet.
A Ben Cleveland squirrel diet is just game changing apparently.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it certainly adds to your legend. But yeah, I think confidence can also be said from of course, we want Lamar to be confident that his protection's holding up. So I think that confidence can be said about really all three of the groups that we've discussed on this show. But let us know what you guys think. I thought that was a heck of a question by Nick Solano. So thanks,
Shout out.
Again, for putting that out there for us and giving us something to talk about. But let us know what you think. Is it the wide receiver additions? Is it the new passing game and wide receiver coaches? Or is it the additions that they brought in to address the offensive line? Tell us which is more important going into 2021, and we'll talk soon.